Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast Special Vanderpump Unit. I hope you brought your cheese graters because this is our coverage of Part 3 of the Vanderpump Rules Reunion. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter. Joining me, as always, is Dylan Ferguson. Dylan, how are you doing?
Ooh, doing pretty good. Glad to finally get to talk about what we've all been looking forward to. Lisa promoting her new restaurant.
And her lighting business?
Or something.
We've also brought back our outsider, Sean O'Rourke, to talk about this. Sean, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me again. Also very pumped to dive into part 3 here.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it. Do you want to give us your highlights right out of the gate here?
Actually, I want to lead off with, I know I mentioned this on part 1, but we got like an actual shot of Brock's haircut, and I just couldn't be more upset.
Yeah.
I really don't like it.
I was kind of expecting him to just suddenly start talking with an American accent as soon as he showed up with that hair.
Yeah, right? Like now he just looks like a dude.
Yeah.
Before he was like one of my favorite character archetypes, the wholesome dipshit, and I think most of that was his long hair and his Australian accent. And now I don't know if it's going to be the same. So that's more of a low light.
Yeah.
So my really big highlights are obviously the last interview with Raquel, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But quickly before that, when Ariana is going off toward the end about the Raquel and Sandoval relationship, and she's basically doing the Diane Keaton monologue in Godfather 2 about like how it's an abortion, really good, like very dramatically compelling. And then of course James has to jump in and make it about like him and Allie and have a comment where it's like, well, Allie's an upgrade to you, Raquel, just totally taking out all the energy. And then just in that whole explosion, Ariana talking about how she's glad it went nuclear, and you could just see like so is Andy Cohen and so are all the producers of the show.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, really, really strong.
Yeah,
And then of course,
Dylan,
go ahead.
I was going to say, Dylan, you touched on a point about we got like a weirdly placed promotion for Lisa's restaurant.
Perry by Vanderpump.
Yeah, I really loved the like design is my passion vibe. You know how you get those like memes where it's like, yeah, graphic design is my passion, and it's in like Comic Sans or papyrus font. It was like exactly that moment. She's like, oh yeah, design is a passion of mine, and this is arguably one of the most beautiful restaurants in Vegas. And then there's like all these clips of this like ugly as shit restaurant.
Lisa Vanderpump is like a young horse girl's idea of a fancy person.
Totally. Absolutely.
And like if that person made their equivalent of like an Applebee's just with a bunch of pink shit on the walls.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there, Sean. You had another highlight?
Well, just into like that, I think the real strongest part of the reunion is the denouement interview at the end where Raquel just kind of comes clean about all the coaching from Sandoval. And there's that great thing where even during that of her wanting to get everything off her chest, where the producer's like, so were you ever in St. Louis? And she's sort of stammering around it, and they cut to the photo of Sandoval and her in St. Louis, and the producer's like, I mean, you might as well just come on.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like really, really compelling and is kind of a good lead into what the show could be going forward, if it does. Like what does it look like from there?
Mm-hmm.
I think this was kind of the feather in Raquel's cap for like a great reunion. Like I thought that she handled herself so well during the reunion and came off like very composed, and I thought that this like really framed her as a victim of Sandoval's manipulation. This
Totally
clip at the end. So I don't know. I felt sympathetic towards Raquel during this episode, and I am a little shocked that I haven't seen that sentiment expressed a bit more within the fandom. Like obviously there's a betrayal here that people are feeling very viscerally, but they are treating her as like subhuman, and that's like the label that is being applied to her in this reunion, and people are, you know, they're taking that and running with it and treating her as garbage.
I was curious about the like. I haven't dug into the reaction from the fandom, but because the whole
Don't.
reunion
It's
is
dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a horrible cesspool.
a lot of the
Sorry, Craig.
reunion.
I know we're trying to build a brand here.
Yeah.
So much of, especially part three, is like this intense shame ritual, and like I don't know how you can't feel anything for Raquel having to like
Hmm.
sit through that, particularly with the information at the end of like you say, showing that manipulation from Sandoval. It's kind of
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
if people are watching on YouTube, I am wearing red. It is not an allusion to Ariana's red dress, but in solidarity with Raquel's scarlet letter. I think, you know, and like Hester Prynne, Raquel has angered the masses with her beauty and quiet dignity.
It is very Puritan. It's very Puritan, like Massachusetts colony in the 1600s witch trial. It's
Yeah,
it is the passion of Raquel, and
yeah,
I I totally agree that I can't imagine watching this and not feeling sympathy for her. You know, I've been riding Team Raquel the whole way, so
yeah,
that's been my perspective from the start. But I can't imagine watching this and seeing all these people just be as mean as they possibly can to somebody who, regardless of what she's done, it's in an extremely emotionally vulnerable situation, and just try to hurt her as hard as they can by denying her humanity, by her saying it's human and then saying that's not human behavior, by saying she's subhuman, which I think is just never an okay thing to say to somebody ever in
yeah,
any situation, no matter who they are. And, calling her rotten and disgusting and nothing. The lowest blow of all, comparing her to a villain in a Harry Potter story. That's going to cut deep for her. I think the only way Ariana could have hurt her more is if she said, like, if Taylor Swift met you, she wouldn't like you. um, but you know what? Not fun for me. This wasn't fun for me. I'm not saying I didn't like the episode. It was rich in content. It was an
yeah,
experience. It was like a whole searing document. But like I found it stressful, uncomfortable, grueling, punishing. And so many people were saying they wanted catharsis, and I think that a lot of the communication coming out of the show was that too. I think Andy was saying that going up to us. The fans are going to get catharsis. Is this what people wanted? Is this really what people wanted? Are people really sitting there on their couches, eating chips and ice cream and grinning and cheering and being like, yeah, bully her?
It didn't
yeah.
feel.
What people definitely are like, that's the sentiment that we're seeing, which
But do
is,
you think they still feel that way after watching it now?
yeah, I do. Just judging based on the reactions that I've seen so far. I
Yeah,
mean, maybe time will, there'll be more people that are coming out and
sure.
expressing their discomfort in it, but
Yeah, once
the
the
immediate
moment's kind of passed a little bit, when people are less caught up in the moment of the thing.
the immediate reaction still is like anger towards Raquel and Tom. Well, actually, the immediate reaction is just like anger and disbelief towards Tom's comment about Ariana wearing a t-shirt during sex.
That
Yeah,
was
that was
pretty.
bad.
It was pretty
That was
low.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You did not need to say that, Tom.
yeah, bad move.
Oh, this
I,
will
the
get
way
me sympathy.
Yeah. And I like that he apologized after, but he apologized to Tom Schwartz, not to anyone else. It's like, sorry, dude. And
Yeah.
Tom's like burying his face in his lap. Um, but yeah, I do still see this anger being expressed online towards Raquel. And, I think that Ariana did not come across that great in this episode to me. I mean, she was, the way that she had been built up leading into this, I feel like she was in an impossible position. Like she couldn't, both express the anger that all these fans of her now want to see expressed, while also coming across as like taking the higher road. But I feel like there were moments where she stooped to a level of immaturity that we've only seen from James. Like when
Yeah.
she says like grody, it
Yeah.
is it's very childish, and I don't think that that is the reaction that anyone was really hoping for. I think they wanted, you know, the clear, articulate, precise blows that she was giving at certain points, but to see her kind of revert to this childish handling of things is something that I don't think that people were looking for, at least especially not me.
Yeah, I mean, I said in the previous episode that she gets kind of a special dispensation because she's the
Mhm.
one who's wounded and who has to like go through a really, really hard situation and kind of gets to do whatever she needs to do to try to uh, feel less hurt because of this. But she went really far into, like you said, kind of the childish, just trying to inflict as much damage on another person as I can, that it became hard to take her side, I thought.
Yeah, and I get that, obviously she's entitled to this these feelings and this anger, and that's completely justified. Um and I guess one thing that we as viewers need to be mindful of is there is a lot more space between these revelations and the time that we're viewing this versus these
Right.
revelations and the time that it was recorded. It was still very fresh. I think they said it was about 3 weeks. So that anger is very fresh. So that's something I think she gets a little bit of leeway, but this is not how I was hoping to see her operate throughout this reunion in my personal opinion. And obviously that's the last thing that matters, what I think, but it was not satisfying for me.
And I also wonder, is she helping herself too? Like, is she doing the best thing to help herself heal by being as maybe I literally don't know. Like, it's honestly an honest question, but like it does kind of make me kind of question all the people around her who are giving her so much support, which is amazing. It's so great that she has a lot of people giving her support, but are they giving her the right kind of support by just being like, let's be really mean? Like, is that
Yeah.
really the best approach to help her heal? I'm not sure. Maybe in the short term, that's like really what she needs. I don't know. I just fucking don't know.
I mean, I
It's
was surprised to see some balance coming from Lala in that respect because, you know, Lala at one point says, look at this as a gift that they have given you. Like, you're
Hmm.
getting out of this relationship. You're going to thank them later.
Yeah.
And I do think that, like, that is a great way to be supporting her, while also handling, giving the fans the anger that they want to see.
Yeah. She might have taken it a little bit far by being like, can you imagine being with Sandoval? Bullet in my brain. Like,
Yeah.
okay, she was with him for like 9 years. Like, that might
Yeah.
not be like super nice for her to hear right now. I don't know.
yeah. James loved it though.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah, James.
in parts 1 and 2, there's like sort of a dignity to Ariana's anger, and it's like very understandable, and that you have a lot of empathy with it. But like when they bring Raquel out, there's a shift in the energy, and I don't know if it's just feeding off of like the peanut gallery of Lala and James, and sometimes Katie, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
it feels uglier in part 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have preferred to see that ugliness and that childishness in parts 1 and 2 when Raquel was not present, and it directed at Tom, who I think,
Hmm.
obviously deserves this anger way more than Raquel does. Um, but to see that come out only after Raquel shows up, maybe that's the edit, but I think that's another thing that, feels a bit unsatisfying and off to me about this whole dynamic.
Hmm.
I want to talk about James here because
Of
James
course you do.
reverts. James reverts to a childlike state here that was very annoying, even as a Jamesiac.
Yeah.
Um, But as soon as Raquel comes out, he cannot contain himself, or he can barely contain himself. He's like, he can't keep a straight face. This is, this is the chum in the water for him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, clearly not over Raquel, and like the season really illustrates that all throughout. But yeah, like something, yeah, like he just gets that whiff of blood and absolutely goes off. And then I did really appreciate Lisa like momming him down when he's really going off on the poo poo head rant. It's like, if you don't shut up, we're gonna be here for 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how he was consistently making things about himself. And then at one point he's like, why does it always come back to me? Am I just that entertaining? And Lisa's like, no, you're not. And he's like, but I am actually. Like, I am.
Well, I will say there's one really entertaining and funny James moment in part 3. They do the group photo, and as they're kind of breaking up, and he just softly sings that line from the theme song, "These are
Yeah.
the best days of our lives." That's very funny.
Yeah, he was very dynamic. We got him do a little bit of a dance number here too. It was
No storm offs.
he's a triple threat. Triple threat. He can act, he can sing, he can dance.
There's also that great moment where Andy's like, "Hey, so you had that festival? Any big festivals coming up? What's next for DJing?" And he's like, "Maybe the same one this year."
Yeah.
And that's it. Or like, I guess, see you next Tuesday at Sir. Does he do that still?
Yeah. He's I think he's touring his DJ thing right now.
Oh,
So
okay, good for him.
I know I've seen like social media clips where he's got people chanting Sandoval's a liar.
In spite of myself, I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
Does he do his weird DJ hands to it?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. What did you guys think about the Sheena cam? We got the same like trailer treatment for her as we did of Raquel. Who had the better trailer face?
I mean, Sheena's expressions are really good, just because she always looks like some sort of bird that you've startled in the woods, like some sort of jungle bird who like is seeing a human intruding other territory for the first time. So I mean, she just got great facial expressions, so I'll give her the edge for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love the clutching of a White Claw and like angrily eating sun chips.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Just like White Claw in the talons, yelling at the TV.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
I would have liked, what? Actually, it was a good setup they had, but it would have been nice to just have Sheena's face like in a little insert in the corner for the whole time, like just a constant Sheena reacts.
Like almost like an interpreter, like
yeah, exactly. Or like I think there was like a time on like Fox News had like Tucker Carlson reacts to like Joe Biden giving a speech, and they put like his face in the corner of the screen throughout his entire speech, like that. That should have just done exactly
that. I wonder if we're seeing a bit of a evolution of the reunion format by getting this kind of meta cam, because this is something that we saw in the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion a little bit with the husbands this week. It feels very new. I'm always interested in seeing the evolving visual language of reality TV, and this is a like much appreciated addition to the reunion format.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that one next time, but tomorrow we'll talk about the Jersey reunion. But fuck, that we were like great use of back behind the scenes stuff. So yeah,
good
more
extra
of that would
shots
be great.
A room full of Joes.
Yeah, and Louis walking around shirtless, eating flaming hot Cheetos. Yeah. But yeah, we'll get to that tomorrow. I won't get ahead of myself.
Yeah, I think the reaction cam it's an interesting wrinkle. Although in this case, it seems like a happy accident that they did because of the restraining order, and otherwise it just would have been a bunch of people in the room. But it adds a nice, fun extra editing layer, and you can probably have a lot of fun building a narrative out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a new set of punctuation marks that they are able to use that is really adds a new dimension to how you're able to tell this reunion story, which I think has been something that is always like really interesting for fans to watch reunions, because you've got all that context. But I feel like it's probably very limiting for the storytelling personalities involved, because they don't have as many narrative tools that they can use. So giving them something else in the
Mhm.
toolbox to help facilitate that within this format is a very welcome addition.
Yeah, sometimes you get the best new ideas from having to work around restrictions. So that's a
Hmm.
great example of that right there.
Yeah. So let's talk about Raquel. What are your thoughts of how she handled things and how she came across here?
I thought she
Dylan,
did.
after you.
Yeah, I think she did shockingly well, considering how we've seen her struggle with difficult conversations in the past. She obviously had a prepared speech, and she delivered it like clearly, coherently. Didn't like stammer too much. Mostly held her composure. And I thought it was a good performance from somebody who we wouldn't necessarily rely on to provide a good performance. She's always been at a little bit of a disadvantage just in terms of like telekinetic qualities compared to some of these people. She's doesn't have some of the more visually entertaining qualities that some of them have, like a quick wit or strategy or self-awareness or object permanence. But she takes advantage of what she of having a temporary platform, and I thought she delivered her lines pretty well and was like pretty like solid on her feet. And afterwards, when Tom says to her like, "And you did a better job than I did," he's right, she did. Like
Yeah.
Tom
Oh
is
yeah.
the canny veteran. He's the reality TV guy who's been around for a long time, who's like the master of strategies. And in that situation, Tom was tripping over his own feet, and Raquel actually did kind of uh, stand tall and say her piece probably more or less as she imagined it in her head beforehand. So I thought it was a pretty good performance by her.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And I think that like one of the things that she has been criticized for throughout this is her lack of emotion. But here it really paid off, like that training that she has from being in pageants and being very like controlled over expressing her emotion in any way. I think you see that really come out. That training is on display during this reunion. And then when we get the kind of behind the scenes shots that we got during the break, we see her let her guard down a little bit and the emotion come out. I don't think
Yeah.
that she is this emotionless monster that they're trying to paint her as. She's giving them lots of ammunition for that during this reunion, just because of how much composure um, she's trying to keep herself composed. Uh, but yeah, we see when she lets her guard down a little bit, like she's hurting as a result of this, and she doesn't like the person that she is being portrayed as, or that she has become.
yeah. Like there's often on the show, like I said, she's got kind of like a flat affect or the 1,000 yard stare going on. But and again, especially with the context of that last interview, like having to sit through there under the tension of you know lying for Tom and receiving all the abuse from um, Ariana, maybe somewhat understandably, and then Lala and James a little bit less so. I thought came off like I said, really really poised and really came off super well. Um, whereas Tom just keeps, or Sandoval, I should say, just sort of keeps like falling into the trap of getting into the arguments, like the
Mm-hmm.
yes it matters, no it doesn't, over and over. And Raquel comes off as like more mature in the situation, and it's impressive I think to be able to like take all that abuse and just not even do a James storm off, just sort of calmly walk away to get a sip of water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought she was leaving for the show when she originally walked off, and then she's like, "No, I'm just getting some water." I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah, and then just
yeah,
like calmly back.
another round, let's do it." Yeah.
It's like a really good it's like a martyrdom of Raquel almost.
Yeah,
Yeah. Speaking of Tom's performance here, there was a few attempts I feel like Tom tried to lighten up the mood a little bit, or at least one spot in particular that stands out to me when James was going off on his like poo poo head. You're gonna live in a house of poop. And he's like, "Oh, I'd like to see that actually." You know, at a very like teenage boy kind of like trying to
yeah,
get that banter going, and James just like shuts him down immediately. It was a illustration of just how much anger there is in this room, that he can't break this. He can't even like, there's no way to shine a spotlight on how like childish and ridiculous this situation is. It's just, it's pure anger and hate being directed towards him.
yeah. And just in terms of Raquel's reaction, honestly, like I'm trying to put myself in that situation. I can't imagine. Like I can't
Yeah,
visualize
no
it.
way.
No more than I could visualize like being the subject of online hatred like that too. Like I literally can't. Like if I read like one negative comment about my work online, it ruins my day. Like I just can't fathom it. I can't fathom how like my brain would deal with that kind of situation. So with stuff like that, I just kind of hope that like Raquel has like good people around her because I don't know how I would hold up in that situation at
Yeah,
all.
it's got to be completely brain breaking. Like, there's no way that you could put me in that exact same situation and I wouldn't just be like, just melt into a quivering puddle in 8 seconds.
Yeah, that's surely what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen some really ridiculous attempts online at trying to, you know, mock her. I've seen people drum up old like elementary school yearbook photos where her name is spelt as Rachel and not Raquel,
Oh, they
and it's
got her
like,
ass.
yeah. And it's like, okay, you're going to put this picture of Raquel when she's in grade 5 in student council, and it just seems like you're directing your anger at a literal child in this case. And it's like, how do you expect people to like jump on board with that? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've got kids that just, you know, it just feels so gross to like be directing all this hate at, you know, a person when they were, you know, when they're younger and they've got so much like hope and aspirations, and like they're on like student council, like really trying to do good, and that's where you're gonna focus your anger on this version of them, not, you know, not even this boogeyman that you've like made Raquel out to be. It's, yeah, it's ridiculous what I'm seeing. It's gross.
They make, I think,
It's
way
grody.
too big a they make like way too big a deal about the name thing. It does not seem like at all relevant to the like the source of all their hatred for her. And I, even though Raquel doesn't like, she's not super articulate under pressure. She can stumble over her words, but when I think it's Lala is calling her out for that, and Raquel is just being like, "Look, that's like my preferred name that I want to be called, a lot like, you know, you're Lala," and then they get into that weird argument about nicknames.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I thought like Raquel handled herself pretty well in pointing that out, and it just kind of illustrates how ridiculous and irrelevant that it really is to the situation. Like,
Yeah, and I think it also illustrates kind of what a line of attack is, which is that, well, on the one hand, they want to use it. I think the anti-Raquel camp wants to use it as evidence that she's not genuine, that she's presenting herself to be somebody she's not. But I think it also ties into the idea that people want to tell her that she's not allowed to define herself, that she has to be like defined by other people. And I think that's boils down to a lot of like what the fury swirling around her is that she's always been on the show like a pretty like meek person who's kind of like stayed in her lane, and I think this arc that she had this season after her breakup with James, after losing the ability to compete in pageants, where she just decides to try to go on a halting journey of discovery, and where she tries to define herself by her own terms, is what she needed to do in that situation. Like, if you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
find yourself, you're never going to find it within the parameters set by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, really I mean, obviously what she did piss people off, but the fact that like she would use the language, I guess, of self-discovery to try to explain like her thought process, I think is really the thing that's setting a lot of people off in a certain way, because it's like, um you know, how dare you tell us who you are, or use this as like your self-definition. um I feel like I'm not expressing myself very clearly, but you know what I'm saying. It's like it's all about
Yeah.
like whether we get to define you or whether you get to define yourself. And when somebody's put themselves in a position for so long where they let other people define them, and then they say, "Now I'm going to define myself," and does something that like transgresses the boundaries, it's like extra infuriating for the people who thought that they had you put in a box.
Yeah, and that's probably the source of Lala's anger, because she has been the number one person trying to keep Raquel in a box
Yeah.
while they James and her were in a relationship. And so I think you definitely touched on something that is the source of why Lala seems to be taking this so personally, even though
Hmm.
she's one of the least affected people within this group by this whole situation. Um,
Yeah.
but to get back to the name thing a little bit, it seems like every effort is being made by everyone, both on the cast and in the fandom, to dehumanize Raquel in whatever way possible,
Yeah, when she
and
says what
to
she feels at one point, they say, "You feel nothing." They feel like they have the right
yeah.
to tell her she doesn't feel anything, to dictate that to her. And I thought that was a really bizarre, like sadistic thing to say to somebody.
Yeah, and to completely devalue everything that she has done in her past and completely make up a new Raquel that consists purely of this mistake that she has made, this like
Hmm.
error in judgment, which, I mean, obviously was very hurtful. But she's not just defined by this. Like, James is saying, "Oh, well, she doesn't win. She's not going to win that pageant. She doesn't win those either." Like, dismissing something that she has been like core to her identity for years up until this point. Everyone is grasping at pieces of Raquel to try to strip away her humanity and tear her down. And like you said, I hope that she is able to she's surrounded by people that are able to, build her up and like support her, because she's obviously going to need that. I If her and Sandoval are still together, I have my doubts that he would be, the best person for that job. One thing that gives me hope is we have seen consistently through this season, especially, how brave and head on Raquel takes situations. Like, she goes into uh, the situation where she's going to tell Katie that she can't go into the cool kids pool, or like diving into this reunion. That takes a lot of like bravery and like strength in character in order to put yourself in that position. So
Her
hopefully
balls
that is
drag
some
out the door, as somebody once said.
yeah, exactly. Her balls drag out the door. Bang on. Um, but she she is able to handle these situations in a way that is very striking to me. If And I think it would be striking to anyone that can, get past the anger that they feel by proxy for Ariana.
Yeah.
It is remarkable that she's able to do this. So it gives me hope that she's able to get past this. And another moment that kind of stuck out to me was when Lala was like, "Oh, I hope you're getting your head evaluated," and Raquel's like, I am getting my head evaluated. Like, thank you very much. Like, I am talking to a professional.
And I
Like,
hope she
Lala,
is. I hope she
yeah,
is.
for sure. Lala is using this as, the fact that she's being bullied to a point where, she is potentially in some distress mentally, as another way, as another weapon. And Raquel is able to be like, well, actually, it's good that I am seeing someone to talk about these issues.
Yeah.
And we are seeing her still like reevaluating what her mindset was. We see some introspection there, which is really interesting, where she said, oh, I think I was discovering myself, and the pendulum went too far the other way this summer. I went from being someone that was only worried about pleasing others to someone that was only worried about pleasing myself. And so it seems like she is, in spite of this tremendous situation that she's in, that she is still continuing this journey to figure out who she is. And it sucks to watch people pull pieces of that away from her wherever they can. But it is remarkable that she is still carrying forward and, figuring out who Raquel is, and seems to be trying to grow from this.
Yeah, because that's what you gotta do in your 20s. You gotta try things out, and you're gonna step on toes, and you're gonna piss people off. But you gotta try things out to figure out who you are. And everybody else in that room has gone through that same process. They've all gone through that same
Yeah, like
process, and that's good. That's what you do. That's part of it. That's part of life.
Raquel is like at least a few years younger than the rest of the main cast, right? Like other than,
Yeah,
well, Allie's not main cast, but like everyone's in their 30s except for her
yeah,
is
30s
I
or
think what I gather.
40s. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's kind of funny to see all these like supposedly more mature people putting all that intense pressure and hatred on her for something literally everyone in that room has also done. Maybe not Katie. I haven't gone through the whole series
hmm
yet, but like
yeah. I think Katie's the only one who doesn't
Ariana and
really have
Tom
cheating
when he was with
allegations.
Kristen, right?
Yeah,
Obviously Lala and James when he was with Raquel. Um, I mean, well, Schwartz isn't on the side of hating Lala, but he's got the, or Raquel, pardon me, but he has the thing with Raquel. Like they've all done the same thing, so
Yeah.
it's rather it's very strange that there's that level of dehumanization and hatred going toward her for it.
yeah, because that's part of it. They're trying to make her the vessel for everything that they've been attacked for and that they feel guilty about as
Yeah,
well.
they need a Christ
Uh,
figure for their own romantic
they need
sins.
somebody to tie to the pyre because they think that will fix everything because it'll make it into a show about good guys and bad guys, which has never been
Hmm.
a show about good guys and bad guys because it's always just been about fucking people and
Yeah,
people
well, it's
fucking.
always been about
And-
people who eat at restaurants 4 times a day.
yeah, yeah, and when Raquel says, that's human, and they're like, no, it isn't. It's not a human behavior. It is human. And you know what? When
Yeah.
Tom Sandoval says people aren't logical, he's right. People aren't logical.
Yeah.
And
This is a show about the spectrum of humanity and goat cheese balls.
The Tom logical thing is, yeah, that's a great little moment. He's like, because he says it, and then just because people need to just jump on Tom for saying anything, they're like, yeah, it's not logical, and he's like, well, yeah, that's what I said. That's
yeah,
my point. We
Yeah.
weren't acting out of logic.
and that's where actually where Lisa's inclusion is kind of a little bit appreciated, is that even though I don't always love what Lisa has to say, though her restaurant looks beautiful, amazing, I they're calling it one of the best in Las Vegas. But as somebody with like more like life experience, it's kind of nice to have her occasionally chime in and be like, yeah, you know what? Like you get different perspective when you're older. Maybe like you won't find this like the worst thing that's ever happened in the world in a bit. Or like when I really like when Katie's like, oh, I don't know, I just see myself being like a cool aunt who every year is in a different country with a different man. And Lisa's like, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, I always love the like realist perspective from Don Lisa. Love to
Yeah.
hear
What did you guys think about the lens that this was shown through? I think there's definitely a difference between the the attitude and the perspective that the audience is viewing this from, or the fan base is viewing this from. But I what did you think about how the edit presented this story?
Well, I think we need to talk about the ending to answer that because honestly, I might need some time to process it. But initially, the ending left me furious. The way they end
Oh
the
yeah.
show, yeah, because the way I read it, the fact that they end, with first with Raquel divulging more information and being like broken down by this producer is like prodding like pretty easily, like getting her to reveal information without like Tom Sandoval nearby to try to get her to keep her story in line, and providing more information, which, like, in itself, her providing more information is a good look for her.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they choose to end it with shots of her looking like really upset and maybe bordering on another panic attack, like we've seen from her before, to me, my initial read was that they were trying to frame this as a capstone on the catharsis idea that, oh, look, now she's really unhappy. She's trapped in a prison of her own making. Her bars are her lies and her guilt. Aren't you happy
Mm-hmm.
now? Aren't you happy to see that she's like actually upset and she's getting nothing from this except anguish and pain? So for me, I initially read that as the series taking the side at the end after it's been done a really good job throughout, I think, of being like uh being equitable and like being like open and letting everybody tell their story, which, as I've often said, is what's great about reality TV, is you almost can't help but doing that if you're trying to give
Yeah.
everybody like an equal amount of screen time. It's hard to like just enforce a pure heroes and villains storyline and everything. And I thought the camera's lens had been doing a good job showing everybody. And if it ends that way, to me, I thought it was the camera sitting down with James and Lala and taking the side of the cruelty and the sadism and saying that this is what you want. This is what we're giving it to you. We're going to show her hurting. We're going to show her hurting. If that ends up being like the final seconds of Vanderpump Rules as a show, that's either like a horrific ending that like betrays all the equanimity in favor of this like fake moral sadism, or it's a brilliant ending that like pulls the curtain aside and reveals the whole show as an exercise in sadism that has been like tricking us into thinking that it was a show
Yeah.
about humanity all along.
Yep.
Uh,
Executive producer Gaspar
Yeah.
No.
You know what? I won't argue that it is an exercise in sadism, but that is a completely different read than I got off this ending, and I'm
yeah, give it
like
to me.
kind of surprised. I can see how you would interpret it that way, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was a matter of framing Raquel as, hey, look, she is also a victim of Tom Sandoval's
Mm-hmm.
manipulation, and kind of a reminder to viewers that, she's look how easily Raquel is manipulated. She was manipulated by this producer into, telling the truth so easily. She's
Yeah.
easily swayed. Um, and we get her, not just giving the timeline, which I don't think is like the big, huge reveal and revelation that, you know, um, that it's made out to be. I think that's not what was surprising to me. What the surprising insight that I got from that was just how much of Raquel's perspective and how much of her story and how she's operating was completely controlled by Tom Sandoval. And I feel like that was what was revealed during that, because so much of this truth that is like trickling out, we're getting a timeline that we basically already knew, but what we're actually getting insight into is, oh, Tom Sandoval, didn't want us to talk about um us having sex more than once because, we he said that it would be less hurtful that way. And, that contrasts what Ariana has said, just a few minutes earlier within the reunion, where she said, one time or a million times, it doesn't matter. And so we're seeing her be like, okay, well, this perspective that I'm getting from Tom Sandoval, this is the subtext, not what she's outright saying. Um, this is the perspective, and this is why I wasn't truthful. It was because Tom said to do it this way. And then we completely see her like fall apart, where she's trying to maintain this one last lie for Tom about hooking up the dipped out night, the jacuzzi night.
Yeah.
um and she completely like falls apart. And it feels like the type of, I didn't see Tom Sandoval as a predator until this clip, because it got that kind of like, you tell anyone about this, everyone's gonna know that you're this like filthy slut, like, the type of sexual predator move to like blackmail someone into keeping quiet the manipulation that they have experienced. And she has very much internalized this perspective that Tom has forced on her, like, it's going to be such a bad look for you to hook up with me while Ariana is out of town
Well, it
at a
is.
funeral.
It
Well,
is.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure it is, but it feels like she has been so heavily manipulated by Tom. And we talk about like Kaiser Soze moments within reality shows, when we were talking about the Real Housewives of New Jersey finale. But this was like a Kaiser Soze moment for me, where it's like thinking back on all these instances where Tom and Raquel have interacted, and being like, oh, there's manipulation at play, especially in the first reunion, where we got the lunch break, where he is desperately trying to get some time with her off camera to manipulate her even more. So I read this as trying to be a bit of a contrast from what we saw during the reunion, where we're just seeing Raquel as a punching bag, to giving her this victim moment, where she hasn't really got that since the scandal broke.
sure. I guess for me, I don't see her as a total victim like that. What you're saying is it's a very good point. And I think uh, we've known more and more as the show is going on how like sleazy Tom Sandoval can be. And when he was asked about like if they hooked up in the jacuzzi, and he says absolutely not. Right then, I was like, okay, he did. Like he
Yeah.
wouldn't have said it so firmly if it wasn't like something that he was trying to cover up. I do think that we should credit Raquel's words though when she says that. Describing why she felt she had to do this, and she talks about feeling uh like she wanted to be physical with somebody that she really felt like she loved for the first time in her life, and feeling that this was like really important for her to have that experience. I think we should credit her words a bit in that, and I think it's maybe not totally fair to her if we treat her as just as a victim of manipulation, which might be true to some extent, but that's like very thorny. It's a very thorny thing to untangle, right? To decide like what is
Yeah.
manipulation, what is people doing what they feel is best for them in the moment. That's hard to that can be hard to untangle, and probably maybe unfair for us to do from this vantage point. But I think if we take like her words at face value, and we should, she was probably she was an actor acting on what she thought was best for her. And I think she did a decent job of explaining why she felt it was like important for her as a person at that point to engage in that relationship.
Yeah. I guess I think the contrast between our initial reads of this is, I don't feel like it was the show reducing the situation to black and white, which is something that I think
Mm-hmm.
the show has done a very good job of doing, is keeping this as something that exists on like a gradient. It felt like it was a moment to balance balance. It was a balancing moment.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I
For
think I
sure.
have
Yeah.
like somewhat of a synthesis of the two views where if that were to be the last like images we had of Vanderpump Rules, it would be profoundly depressing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it also is like assuming and hoping for a season 11. I think it's a good like cliffhanger and slight turn into exploring that or putting more like apparent conflict with Sandoval and like driving more of that. So I would be very interested to see how that shakes out with everyone's, I'm sure, very loud reactions to Sandoval's whatever amount of manipulation it is, like even the coaching and stuff.
yeah.
Um, kind of like pivots a little bit away from martyrdom Raquel and maybe uh, getting more like shining a light on Sandoval's actions a bit more. That's what I hope
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
anyway.
Another thing that I was really impressed with in terms of the edit on this, the editors were able to provide receipts on behalf of Raquel when she was being attacked by Lala. They, you know, anytime Lala was trying to, as Raquel pointed out, rewrite history, the edit would bring back a clip and keep it honest. So I feel like if the edit was trying to go for a purely black and white read, or not a purely, but just kind of end on that note, they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, though I do think that you could make a case that that Lala actually was being a little bit done dirty there when they show a clip of her saying like, I'm a mistress. I'm a homewrecker." What she's saying is, "This is what people have called me."
Right.
She's not
Yeah.
Yeah,
saying this
yeah.
is
How the
this is
woman
what
always gets
I
the
actually
blame.
am. So I think you could actually say that they're kind of being sketchy towards Lala there.
In
But
that
I think
scene,
it was justifying like Raquel's read on the situation. She might not
yeah,
have interpreted that way. So
Mm.
yeah.
it is interesting to note that in that original scene, Lala is exactly right. Everybody hates Raquel, and Tom is so far not getting away with it, but is definitely receiving, I think, less of the abuse and vitriol during the reunion.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
talked a lot about the duality of Lala, and that was her best, like, good Lala moment in this season. And this episode was bad Lala basically burying good Lala 6 feet under.
Yeah, Lala's very vexing.
She is, yeah. It's a tough world being a Lala fan. I've checked in with it actually.
Did you guys have any final thoughts on the reunion?
Not really. I mean, I could easily think of two worse people. By the way, like I don't know. Look up Pol Pot, Ariana.
I can think of 100 worse people.
Yeah. But no, I think we covered a lot of ground, and I'm glad that I feel like my Team Raquel perspective has taken root a little bit more here, because I think that I hope that more people kind of come around to that idea, because like just glancing at the online reaction as we've covered extensively, I think it's a little grim and depressing for me.
I think you've got that
sure.
that championship window open for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. This has been a wild ride of a season.
Yeah.
Sean, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
If you're inclined to look, you can find me Sean's Haircut on various social media.
Awesome. And Dylan, yourself?
Dylan Ferguson on Substack.
Awesome. This has been Bravo Outsider Special Vanderpump Unit. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to have an episode where we cover the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion.
Way more fun
Real
than this one, honestly.
Real Housewives of Atlanta and the return of Tamra on Real Housewives of Orange County with outsider Benji Rothman. You can find us wherever you're listening to this. We're on YouTube, BravoOutsider.com. Follow us on Instagram at BravoOutsider, on Twitter at Bravo_outsider.
Oh, I temporarily changed our Twitter handle to BravoLover1234 in honor of Rachel Fuda. That's not a joke I did. I mean, it is a joke, but I did.
Yeah. Okay, so search us out on Twitter. You'll find us.
I've made it hard, but you will.
Yeah. Until next season, keep on pumping.
Keep on pumping. Getting pumped up.